Your actual political future as American citizen is a great, great risk.
We say that we live in a democracy or a representative democracy or a democratic republic, but what we actually have is a voting system that denies people the right really to get the representation that they want.
The reason it's important for people to vote is that you actually then feel that you're in some kind of control of your own destiny.
It's very important to vote just because part of the democratic process is your government only has as much power as the people give it. Giving it to a certain extent is getting out to vote. We kind of lose who we are if we were to stop voting.
Voting, I think, is the most important right that we have as U.S. citizens. I think it's one that should be cherished. We, the people, we own the government, and too often people that don't vote allow bad politicians to get elected.
We have such poor participation in our elections because people believe that their votes don't count.
Unfortunately, too many people don't vote, and that can have a worse impact on our community. Perhaps the media spends too much time on national politics and not enough on local involvement.
When we have elections, lower turnouts is favored by those in power.
When you have the feeling that everybody else is controlling your life, especially on major issues, you feel impotent and attenuated from society. Voter suppression is a methodology which is designed to dissuade people from voting, if not making it impossible for them to vote.
The people who are orchestrating the voter suppression are the people who are spending the money in elections. They think about what will make people feel alienated because they know that their interests are people not voting.
Our history is replete with situations in which we actually disallowed people to vote. While we think ourselves as being now modern and progressive, we still have voter suppression in different forms.
It's not just people feeling alienated. I think they want people to feel alienated.
There's nobody actually preventing you to vote. Nobody's locking the door on you. They're making it more difficult. And more difficult, the more likely you're going to be successful in dissuading that group or that person from voting.
In 2010, another horrific Supreme Court decision with Citizens United.
In 2010, the 5 conservative justices on the U.S. Supreme Court decided that they wanted to overturn about 107 years of precedent on campaign finance rules and legislation, and pretty much opened the door to unlimited spending by non-persons, namely corporations and other kinds of groups, in political campaigns.
Now, what does that mean? That means that every politician to me is now crooked.
Ruling itself was incredibly corrupt.
The amounts of money being spent are growing even more. The really outrageous prostituting of the campaigns and of the individual candidates in order to raise this money is really disgusting.
It's the Supreme Court case in 2010 that established, it used the 2 pillars. It said that because corporations have the same constitutional rights as people, money is speech because campaign spending is a protected form of speech according to the Supreme Court. And these were 2 earlier rulings that I was building off of, that corporations can give unlimited amounts of money to influence the outcome of our elections, and that included unions in the ruling.
They're dwarfing the ability of individuals, even collectively, to be heard in government, to make their voices known as opposed to what they're packaging for you. They're getting to select candidates that they want. If I'm a billionaire through a corporation or otherwise, I can determine who the candidates are going to be, not you, because of who's funding them.
Basically, the Citizens United decision threw that out the window with regard to independent corporate spending. There have been other decisions since then that have also furthered the role of big money in politics.
This is not very good for democracy at all because it actually takes out of control the direct accountability that a candidate has for people and what they're going to say on his behalf.
I heard yesterday a politician, he estimated that every elected official in the Congress spends between 4 and 6 hours a day, every day, trying to raise money instead of doing the country's business.
Billionaires like the Koch brothers or Sheldon Adelson, or a wide list of people on the left and the right who are spending unlimited amounts of money to influence the elections and to promote their agenda.
We don't have a strong government, something that can protect our rights and our interests from corporations which are clearly willing and capable of trampling all over our interests. We're in big trouble.
Well, the corporate form of organization came about actually through government charter. So corporations at the time of the founding of our country really were considered organizations that were created for public purposes.
Money is a way of amplifying speech. It's not the speech itself, and that's a really important distinction that the court missed, and it's a really obvious distinction. I think they missed it because they had a political agenda in mind. The idea of corporations spending money in our elections was never something the founders could have envisioned or would have supported.
Corporations are fictions. They're artificial entities created by the law to achieve some commercial purpose.
Corporations have, over the years, taken on the same rights as human beings.
The big corporations are immensely powerful. They're not interested in you or me. They're interested in profits. Think about that. What's the difference between a campaign contribution and a bribe?
It's important to recognize that there's real hope, that it's not just a terrible situation.
Your involvement in politics at any and all levels is critical.
Where would this country be without community organizers?
Public Citizen is a nonprofit that was founded by Ralph Nader about 43 years ago. We work on a really wide variety of issues, or kind of a people's lobby. You know, say the corporations have their lobby, and Public Citizen is the people's lobby.
I've been a member of the New York State Civil Liberties Union, not only as a member, but as a state board member. And it's one organization that I feel is crucial to issues of justice.
Move to Amend is a national grassroots effort to pass an amendment to the Constitution to say two things. First, that a corporation is not a person, and second, that money is not the same thing as political speech.
We'll get to those places if we can create a more functional democratic society.
In Syracuse, this past year, our city council passed a resolution calling for an amendment to say that a corporation is not a person entitled to all the rights of human beings, and that money is not speech under the idea of political free speech, but rather that campaign contributions can be regulated so that we can have a fair and equal democracy. Our movement has, in cooperation with other organizations, been responsible for the fact that 16 states at this point have in some way or other called for an amendment to the Constitution.
Call up congressmen. You can get responses, sometimes personal responses from elected officials, because at the end of the day, they still have to get your vote.
If we begin to act a little more mature, especially more mature than some of the people who are leading this country right now, the future for America could be a lot more optimistic. New mentality that we have in this country where it's us versus them, rather than a mentality where how can us and them work together to create a better future.
We're not super rich or already in elected office like us, have things that they can do pretty easily if they're motivated to do it. It doesn't cost a lot of money, it just takes time and effort.